All right, welcome back, everybody. It is the time for another episode of Bunker Boys. Just Slade and I here with you tonight. Pretty chill week in the PGA Tour world. We had a great weekend at the Memorial Tournament. We're going to talk all about that. Going to get you ready for the RBC Canadian Open.
The PGA Tour and its Saudi-backed competitor Live Golf, along with Europe's DP World Tour, have agreed to merge.
So yeah, not quite such a calm week as we first learned early Tuesday morning. I'll say this real quick before we go ahead and fully dive into it. I'm kind of glad we had a day to digest this and really let more news and information come out about this because when it first came out, I was kind of upset with how the PGA Tour handled this, just from the looking at the player's standpoint of, you know, Justin Thomas shared a video where he was literally finishing a workout. He looks at his phone and there's like 1,000 notifications on there. So they were blindsided by this. But more and more information is coming out about how this all unfolded and so on. And there's been a lot of press conferences and talks now. So more information's out, and so we can kind of digest it a little bit more, and we have a little bit more to talk about on top of it as well. So here is what we know as of right now. I'm just going to focus on the PGA Tour and Live. I know DP World Tour is also involved in this. You and I were just talking about this. DP World Tour is still kind of carrying on some shenanigans with this. They're not dropping their civil suit against Live and the Live players. So right now we're just going to focus on PGA Tour and Live. Um, so it kind of sounds like what was happening with PGA is this was all on the PGA board. The PGA board really controls everything, and then the commissioner is kind of the head, the talking head of that. So the PGA board behind the scenes was kind of understanding that Live Golf, the PIF fund, that is the Saudi-backed public fund, that it essentially funds Live Golf, it has unlimited money, like billions upon billions of dollars. The PGA was not going to ever be able to keep up with it. You know, when it first came out, obviously their thought is this is just going to be a flash in the pan. Maybe the Saudis will understand this isn't going to work from a financial standpoint, and eventually they'll back out. The more and more they sat there and watched the PIF investment group throw more and more money at this, expand Live even beyond that. Um, they started to understand they can't keep up with it. The PGA Tour itself was paying a lot of money out of pocket for these elevated events that were a huge, you know, marquee thing that they were hanging their hat on. Sponsors were chipping in more, but it was never going to be enough to help pay, to help persuade a lot of these other guys farther down the road to stay on the PGA Tour, not go to Live. And so essentially they bowed to him. And when it first broke, we were all texting. There wasn't a lot of details the moment it broke. We thought, Liv finally gave up, and they're bowing, and then it quickly turned out that that was not the case. Um, as of right now, the way it'll operate, PGA Tour and Live Golf are still separate entities. They are not going to be combining on the tours. I know there's been a lot of jokes, memes going around of PGA guys showing up at their first Live event, and it's just total chaos. So the PGA Tour is still operating on its own, Live Tour on its own. The PGA just essentially has a lot more money now to fund these events, um, and just be successful for years to come is the way a lot of they have put it. But we obviously have a lot of questions behind it. It's like, but before we get into all of our questions and talking about that, just your initial thoughts on it and everything that has come out.
Yeah. So my initial thoughts were that it's crazy. I mean, you had PGA commissioner get on there, make 9/11 remarks just a couple weeks ago, and then turn around and basically do exactly what they were advising the PGA Tour players not to do, not to go against the group, not to be disloyal, and it's there's two people in this situation that I do not want to be. It would be the PGA commissioner and Rory McIlroy, because those are the two that lost out the most in this. Rory, they could a part of this deal could have been him like getting $70 million for having been such this great outspoken person for PGA, and he still loses out on this. It's not about the money. It's about this has literally tarnished his name. He'll be the laughing stock of this entire situation that just happened for years to come. I mean, you've got Phil, who, like we had talked before this, has already kind of been mocking Rory and his having to sit out and different things like that. But I think that this only gives people like him and other people a little bit more ammo to kind of pour it on him. I am still questioning if we're going to know more of like what happened within the negotiations, why the PGA Tour being a player-run organization, air quotes obviously because of what just happened. But if it's true that only like 5 people that are on the committee of the PGA Tour sat in a room with a bunch of lawyers and the live people and sorted this whole thing out overnight, or if maybe some people kind of heard of it beforehand, but were just told to kind of keep quiet. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah. My first thought in regards to the game of golf is I think it'll do good for the product that we see on TV. We don't know the specifics yet. If live guys will be allowed back on the PGA Tour now to play events, I don't think any of that has come out yet. All we know right now is just one company is essentially funding both all or 3 leagues now. And so, but I'm hoping it brings a resolution to that. And we talked about it weeks before about American guys being allowed onto the Ryder Cup team. Hopefully, this is another alleyway to make that more of a possibility. Obviously, Brooks Koepka just won a major. Hopefully, Zach Johnson kind of sits back and sees that and says, "Okay, at least he's eligible." I know he's been making some comments on his own about, "Oh, I don't know, how good these guys really are." Um, but regardless, I hope this just opens another path for that to be a possibility. Like we just said, the DP World Tour is still kind of carrying on, so it's going to be hard for the European guys to get onto the team. But nonetheless, again, we still need to wait for more details on that end to come out about, guys being able to play, from tour to tour, how that's still going to work out. Um, but on the other hand, like you said, I feel I feel horrible for the guys. Rory McIlroy's been the big one, but you also think about Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, John
Jordan
Rahm,
Spieth,
Jordan Spieth, huge
Roar.
names.
Sorry,
Even Tiger
you already
Woods
said that.
offered
Oh,
large amounts of money to go over and play live golf, and they said no. We're going to stay here. We're going to be loyal for the tradition, the everything that comes with playing on the PGA Tour. And then and again, I'm not pointing fingers right now, Jay Monahan. That was my first initial thought yesterday. Was this is Jay Monahan's fault? Some more information has come out. How true it is, this is information Jay Monahan put out. I don't know if he's trying to deflect off of him, or if it is the truth that Jimmy Dunn and Ed Hurley were kind of the spearheaders. They had the meetings. Jay Monahan was kind of kept to the sideline until the final meetings were taking place. He was brought in. Obviously, he did know about it, and then he just chose not to tell other people. So he still does deserve blame, absolutely. Um, but he wasn't the mastermind behind this plan. Um, but these were guys that were going out there and they were championing PGA Tour and how great it is to play here, and that they don't want to go over there and take that money. They don't want to defect, and now all of a sudden they really don't have a choice but to sit here and realize the PGA Tour, like you said, did exactly the opposite of what they asked the players to do. Like you said, this is supposed to be a player run organization, and obviously we've seen a lot of tweets coming out of players that knew nothing was even being talked about. Rory said he at least knew there was backdoor conversations. We just talked. I don't think he knew exactly what those conversations were and what was going to happen. Um, but a lot of these guys, Rory looks the worst. Just for a lot of the comments he was saying. He made more comments today saying, you know, is very hypocritical, but I still hope live golf goes away. Like I don't think live itself is good for the sport. Which to that I say, like, I mean, I feel like he's just very angry at the situation that's happened, and he absolutely deserves to be. But there also comes a time where you just need to kind of bottle it up, close your lips for a little bit, and just let everything else kind of simmer down. Because the way it looks like it's heading is more than likely is these guys are going to be playing back on the tour again. So, I mean, I understand player relationships are still there. I know him and Kepka have played a couple practice rounds and stuff together. Him and Phil obviously have a huge rivalry from their comments back and forth. But you're just making it an eventual reunion a little bit harder on yourself. So, um,
Um, two things that I wanted to add. First thing is about the money part.
mhm,
So it was actually reported 2 3 days ago that Hideki Matsuyama was actually before his back injury last year or at the beginning of this year. Was it last year or the beginning of this year? His back injury.
I think it happened last year, and then it kind of lingered through the
Yeah,
beginning of this year.
right before that had happened, that he was actually outside of Tiger Woods offered the most money by Liv because he is the best playing player out of the Asian area and market, and he's
Mhm,
actually sponsored by Strixon, which is the largest golf carrier in the Asian market.
yeah,
They had said that like he would have drawn the most eyes outside of a U.S. player had they been able to sign him, which I just think is crazy because that's another person that like definitely didn't need to stay on the PGA Tour, especially if at the time might have been battling some back injuries and
yeah,
could have easily taken a check, slid over, taken the time to rest, kind of like Brooks Koepka, and then
yeah,
came back and started playing high level golf again. The second
yeah.
thing, do you feel that that first video that came out with PGA Commissioner kind of reminded you of some other videos that have come out of Saudi area the last 10 years?
Yeah. No, it was definitely a very I mean, it was an awkward
It was just
situation watching
awkward.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
watching him up there on the podium, trying to answer all these questions. Um, it the camera was also a little out of focus, so I
Mhm.
definitely it added an element to it, and I see what you're saying there.
It's just weird.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there's obviously gonna be more and more information and news that's coming out about this. The RBC Canadian Open is gonna be I think all the eyes are off the golf that's gonna be played this weekend.
It's on
And we're
fire, literally.
yeah.
The,
We're
the,
we're
the country is on fire.
yeah. We're gonna be talking a lot about, our fantasy picks here, and kinda second guessing some of these picks now just because of, all this coming out and the mental weight it's gonna put on these guys as they try to go out there and continue to play golf and play well. Before we move on, just some of the questions that I was thinking of that I just at least wanted to discuss. Um, one of them where you brought up was, our live guys gonna be allowed back and just information that we still need to get answered there and Ryder Cup as far as that as well. Um, but one of the things about this was, or the comments made is the PGA Tour is still supposed to be operating as its own separate entity. But with so much money being pushed in by this PIF fund and the Saudis, um, I kind of wonder and I worry that eventually, one, there's the board. I don't even know if they're still going to be around. But two, if the Saudis are going to kind of start dipping their hands into, the day to day operations and a lot of planning like that. And one thing I think, and I don't know, not necessarily that the Saudis will control this, but watching how global the Live Tour has become and going to a lot of these different and cool locations that I think the PGA Tour is missing out on. One of the big ones is Australia. Um, is I wonder if this is gonna kind of push PGA in that direction. Let's do a couple more international events. I know the winter break is usually when they do a lot of Japanese and Asian tours. But are we gonna see some more stops now in South America? Or like I just said, Australia, something like that. So that's another thing. Um, but yeah, so those are just the questions in the back of my mind. Like I said, as more information comes out, and obviously, I think this is something we're gonna be talking about for weeks, if not months, to come.
Do you think that this turns out to be sort of like two rosters where they just kind of draft players to one side or the other and you play in that league for the year? Like kind of like when WCW was bought out by the
Right.
WWF.
Yeah. I don't see it heading there. Just simply for I don't think that would really work. Just I that would kind of be cool just to watch.
Like
Like
Dustin
it's
Johnson is the captain of the Aces. Do you think that he's able to like draft somebody for $5 million for the season for them to play on their team or whatever, you know?
yeah. No, I don't see it going that far. But I mean, going back to my thoughts and questions going forward is, Live has some relaxed rules toward dress code. One of those is players are allowed to wear shorts. That's something PGA players have been begging for, and that was a huge proponent for Live Golf. So I wonder if kind of some of those fun rules are going to trickle their way into the PGA. Again, just things we're going to have to watch out for and keep an eye on. It's going to be a very interesting couple weeks and months here going forward, watching how
Last
all this stuff
question.
unfolds. Yeah.
What is the biggest thing you hope changes?
Um,
Is it the relaxation on like the outside of golf rules, kind of like with dress code, different things like that? Maybe
the
having it
biggest
mic'd up
thing,
the entire
yeah,
tournament.
the biggest thing, and I know Liv does this, but I really like how the PGA broadcasts do their mic'd up. I don't think, and if say on ESPN Plus when you're watching those
Mhm.
dedicated groups, I think that'd be one thing. But when I'm sitting down on CBS, and I've said this many times, and I'll stand by this, I could watch CBS on golf on CBS all day long. I think their coverage is great. NBC
Jim
Golf
Nance.
Channel and the PGA Live suck. I can't.
Mm.
I was that was one of the tweets I was going to put out yesterday. Is like, hopefully with this merger, they fire everybody on PGA Live because I cannot stand their broadcast. Um, but I really like just the walking the hole. Hey, talk me through your shots here, kind of thing. That I know all of them do it now, but um, the big thing I hope for that comes out of this is, like I said, I would really like to see those live guys be able to come back and play on the PGA Tour. Granted, I know that is not what a lot of the PGA guys want, just
Right.
because of they left to take the money. But
Hmm.
I think just with the merger going through, that's the one thing I want to see those best golfers. I want to see, week in, week out. I know they're obviously not going to play every week. That's the big reason they left. Um, I just want to see, big tournaments like the RBC Canadian or these elevated events that we're pushing out now is the true best 70 or whatever guys it's going to be next year playing those tournaments. So that's what I hope for the most. Um,
Yeah, I think, just as a last comment on this thing, I think the craziest thing to come from this, just first thing thinking about it Tuesday morning when this broke, is someone like Brooks Koepka, who does not want to play every week. He wants to play the big tournaments, the majors, or now maybe the elevated events. Um, he got to leave for over $100 million. He got all the rules and everything he wanted to do, and now he gets to come back no consequence. As we see, like on paper so far,
right.
this is just what we know. But it's just crazy. I mean, and then you have, we'll paint Rory as like the goody two shoe guy that, like, I'm not jumping, I'm sinking with the ship, like I'm
Yeah.
going with the ship whether it
Mhm.
sinks or not. And uh these two could possibly be playing in a lot of tournaments next year.
Yeah. And just one last thing on my end that we think about is these guys passed up on the PGA Tour that decided not to leave, that were offered. That's another key thing too. Is a lot of these guys I've seen being outspoken about
We're not
anti.
offered.
Yeah, or I think the one rumor, I don't know if this is 100% true. It was not verified, from what I saw, but in the meeting yesterday when they were kind of going through all this, I think it was Grayson Murray stood up and
Yeah.
was screaming at Jay Monahan, and Rory just stood up and was like, "Dude, you're 233 in the world. Like, play better golf, and then you can be part of this conversation. But really, like, you don't have any kind of say in this." But the guys that passed up the money to leave, at the end of the day, that granted that was an offer to them, but in reality, it's hypothetical money they lost. It's not money that they had attained and then kind of spent and lost. Whereas, and it pales in comparison to the dollar amount, but you think about the live guys that through lawsuits, left and right, the PGA Tour, PGA players, and so on, and lost those lawsuits. I mean, I think they're happy with the contracts they signed, but they lost actual, money, paying for lawyer fees, having any suits that they lost. Um, that's just something else I was thinking about. Obviously, like I said, pales in comparison to the dollar amounts.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you paid
Yeah,
$7 million for lawyer fees when you made 100 million.
yeah. So,
But
but
yeah,
just something else I was thinking about as we were talking. Um, let's go ahead and let's get off of the Live PGA merger. And like I said, I'm sure we're going to be talking about that for weeks, if not months to
yeah,
come. Um, before all of this broke, we had a wonderful tournament at the Memorial. Uh, this is always one of the best tournaments year in, year out to watch. Murfield Village is one of the best golf courses in my mind that PGA Tour goes to regularly. Um, and it is not a easy course by any means. The winning score is 7 under, and the rough was greedy this week. I mean, it really penalized missed shots. Rory obviously was a big one that we're gonna talk about here. But normally one of the best players with his wedges, and he kind of struggled on Sunday, ended of the day Saturday into Sunday, and that ultimately cost him the win as he dropped more and more shots and then fell back. Still ends up finishing T7. You and I were talking about this earlier. There was a couple guys saying, "Oh my God, Rory completely fell apart." He said this break did good for him. Granted, he didn't play his best golf on a Sunday, but still, the fact that he was able to finish T7 when everybody's saying he absolutely fell apart is kind of hilarious to me. But just your initial thoughts on the tournament this weekend.
Yeah, so like you had said, the rough was very unforgiving. That seemed to be the biggest point. Glad you touched on it. I think that something I did not think that Viktor Hovland had in him as of recent was to be able to really gut out his putting game when it mattered. I think afterwards they had put the stat up there that last putt for him was worth $1.2 million.
Mhm.
Um, so I just think that he did a really great job of showing that he has that in him, if need be. At a tournament like this that is a real gritty win because like we had said, if you're not perfect with your drive, your fairways, different things, that you're gonna have a really hard time even getting to the putting surface just because of those unforgiving roughs. Another thing that just to talk about Victor was, I mean, it was pretty crazy that he went out with his college roommate the day after for the longest day
Yeah.
of golf, 36 holes on the bag.
Yeah, and that's awesome to see, and I love that. But yeah, I kind of had my concerns about Victor, and we've seen him in the lead. We've seen him battling for the lead and come up short, but we've seen him a few shots off and then kind of struggle to mount any kind of charge. Now, I
Mhm.
won't say he went out there and he mounted a huge charge on Sunday to get there. He just kind of played solid golf, and I think the lead more so fell into his lap, but still coming down the stretch there 15 through 18, he had to make some key shots, some key putts, sitting there tied for second, tied for first at different points. He ends up, getting into solo second or with a huge birdie putt on 17 to set himself up and put himself in good position to be there in case Denny McCarthy, had trouble on 18, which he did. I'll say this on Denny McCarthy real quick. That was an amazing weekend out of him. Nobody
Mhm.
saw that coming. Um, the way he played 18, obviously hitting your drive the way he did, there was no there was nothing good gonna come of that. The fact that he took his medicine and laid up like he did and still put himself in a good position to no worse than bogey that hole, and get to a playoff was remarkable. I think a lot of other guys in that situation, um, kinda would have felt the pressure. I think it was a Valspar, and I can't think of his name when he kinda hit the drive wrong. Um, and then you saw him from there realize, "Oh, no, like, this is slipping away from me," and unfold from there. Watching Denny McCarthy keep his composure and put himself in contention to, "Hey, let's not fall apart completely here. Let's get this to a playoff." And then obviously, struggled in the playoff as well in 18. It just had his number that day. Um, was huge to see. I'm excited to see what he can do going forward if he can compete for more wins. Um, but watching Hovland kind of finally gut like you said, gut out the win and play really good golf on a Sunday and not make a lot of mistakes like we've seen him do a lot of times this year, like the Masters. I just think of the first RBC tournament we had. Um, so I'm happy to see him win. One question I have for you on this past weekend, and it's been a concern of him all year, but Scotty Scheffler and his putting, I think it was almost 20 strokes he gained on the entire field from tee to green, around the green, just everything. And then when he got the putting, I think he was losing almost 8 strokes on the field. What are your thoughts on Scheffler's putting going forward with two more majors coming up and obviously the FedEx Cup playoffs?
I personally think that just kind of goes on feel more than
Mhm.
like, uh, I don't know, more than like your dynamics and stuff like that. So I think that I would much rather in his position have to work on putting and the different grains and the feel and just kind of honing that in, getting back to where he was previously, than to have, I don't know, missed half of the fairways or something this past
Yeah.
weekend or so. Like I think that of all the things that could be going wrong, I think for him that this is best case scenario. I mean, we had talked about it before. The guy can't be number one in the world. I mean, he could be number one in the world every week, but he can't be that top two guy in the world every single week in and week out. And we saw even last year when he had the great performance the entire year. I mean, he went on what was the record? 5 weeks in a row that he won, or
Yeah, I
five
think.
weeks that he played, he won.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think was it.
Mhm.
But I mean, but then we also saw him have a couple of down weeks where maybe he was top 30 or something like that. So I mean, I don't think that. I mean, I think a third place with the stats that you had just said about. I mean, I don't think that's anything to worry about too much.
Yeah. Yeah, is it I'm not necessarily worried about it. I mean, the fact that, he's playing such good golf, I think he has 12 straight top 10 finishes now, or it might be 10 straight. He has a lot of top 10
Yeah.
finishes in a row now. Um, and the fact that he's able to play this well, and the one thing that's off about his game is his putting. I mean, if he is able to get that even figured out a little bit. I mean, in watching him this weekend, he had the reads right, I feel like for the most part. It's just his speed, or there was I feel like 3 or 4 putts that literally just sat on the lip and just would not fall in for him. So I mean, if he can have just even two, let's call it a two-stroke on the field, difference there. Uh, I think he's going to start winning a lot more tournaments, and with that comes more and more confidence. So I mean, like I said, I'm not necessarily worried about him in any means. It's just I'm worried
Something to
about
think
his,
about.
yeah, his mental acuity to that, because I know this is something he's been struggling with a lot. I go back to there was a video that came out when he was at the Masters, and him and his coach were like arguing on the putting green about things. And so at some point it definitely has to start wearing on you mentally. But the fact that he's playing this well is just remarkable. When
Well, and I think, like you said, it's not hard to kind of nitpick. I mean, anyone else that took third this past weekend, it's very hard to nitpick on something, a part of their game. Uh, but with someone like him that is placed in the top 10 in the last 10 or 12 events that he's played in, I mean, it he's at another level. Like I had said, top two. I mean, it's him and Rom. It seems like recently, and then there's another level below them. Like those two are just up there, able to compete week in and week out. And so when you do see a little bit of a hiccup with the putting, like you have mentioned, it's easy to kind of pinpoint that with someone of his caliber.
Yeah. So that'll wrap up the Memorial Tournament. Again, a great weekend there. It was a lot of fun, as always, to see. We're going to shift over to the RBC Canadian Open this week, just outside of Toronto. Like you just pointed out, there's a lot going on in Canada right now. I think it's over 250 wildfires. So obviously, thoughts and prayers to anybody affected by that. But um, there's going to be a lot of fire on the golf course as well. I think this is still going to turn out to be a great tournament. So let's go ahead. Let's update you on the fantasy golf standings. Slade, I'm slowly eating into your lead
I don't
here
know.
over
It's
me.
slow.
Yeah,
You got a big chunk there.
I only got 6 points this past week, but slowly chipping away at it. I'm 18 back to you right now. Nick is gaining a little bit on you as well, but he's still 17 back from me. And then we had Sam this past week, who just he didn't whoop our butts. Just he had one pick over the rest of us that got him a few more points, but he's 5 up over you. So this is gonna be exciting going forward. And so I'm excited. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into our picks for this week. Since I beat you, I'll go ahead and go first. So first up, I'm taking Corey Connors for my second week in a row. Obviously, he did not play well last week. I think he shot +8 and we missed the cut. But he needs a huge bounce back, and I think the best place to do it, native Canadian, is going to be on his home soil, and so why not? So I'm going to go with him. Next pick is Rory McIlroy. I put this in Sunday night as soon as we cleared out last week's table. Um, he's the defending winner, and he had like we just said, finished tied for seventh last week. I'm a little hesitant though right now, just because of with the news of the merger coming out was one thing, but just watching him on the podium today doing his press conference, I kind of wonder where his mental state is and how much that's going to affect his play throughout the week. My next pick is Tyrrell Hatton, 5 straight top 20 finishes. And I feel like he has a breakthrough coming anytime now. He is one of those guys on tour. I feel like he is one thing in his game away from winning, and winning a lot. And I think a win is coming any time now. And I think this is going to be a great week for him to do it. Matt Fitzpatrick, he finished tied for ninth last week. He's really looking good heading into defending his U.S. Open title. I think he needs to continue to stay sharp. I don't think this is a week he can necessarily take off and relax. I think he's going to want to go out there and play really good golf to stay prepared. So I think he's going to play well this week. Sam Burns, I'm still waiting on something out of him since winning the match play. He finished tied for 16th last week, tied sixth the week before at Colonial. So he's putting together good finishes. I'm still just waiting for kind of that stamp that we haven't seen since the match play. And my last pick is Tommy Fleetwood. He missed the cut in his last start at the Charles Schwab. He's one of the best players in short game. I think he's tied for 12th in adjusted scoring with the short game. And so I mean, I think he's going to rely on that a lot this week. That's going to help him out around the greens. I think it's going to help him get a low score, and I think he's a little bit motivated coming off that miscut. So those are my 6 guys. Slade, who do you got this week?
Yeah, so couple of repeats from you. I started out with Corey Connors. Like you, I thought that he was going to have a great week last week. He proved the opposite. I figure with the extra 2 days rest that he got, that he should be more than rested up for this week. Next, I'm going to go to Hatton. I think that he's just a really strong player. I realistically think that a big name player, like I don't think Rory, I don't know that I just don't think that Rory's going to be able to compete at the highest level this weekend, and that's why I might have to take him out of my lineup, just because there are certain things outside of just like life events and stuff like that that can definitely cause problems with what you're doing. And I think that what just happened with Rory and all the questions that he's going to have and be asked is just a lot for him to deal with for this weekend, especially with this breaking on Tuesday, them not really talking or getting to ask questions until today. I think that it's just a lot to deal with. So I think that Hatton is definitely a good pick this weekend. Matt Fitzpatrick, I think that he always does good when they're outside of the U.S. I don't know. I think that he's really good at finishing the top 15 in those types of tournaments, and so that's why I picked him for this one. Justin Rose, I think that he's a really good veteran that's able to grit himself away or around a lot of these courses that he's been to before. I put in Lipsky. I have no idea why. I just liked his name. I figured he was a good backup guy. If I do sub Rory out, I think I have to go with Grayson Murray just out of spite.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So actually, I was just scrolling, and apparently that report was confirmed. So not Lipsky, Murray stood up. Shout out to Jay Monahan.
Yeah.
Rory kind of responded in defense of Monahan, and a lot of people were not happy. And then apparently after that, Grayson Murray told Rory to fuck off.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of heated people at the RBC Canadian Open this weekend. So it's going to be interesting. Looking at Nick's picks real quick, even though he's not with us, a lot of the same guys: McIlroy, Fitzpatrick, Hatton, Connors, Rose, and Burns. We're
All
getting to the
repeats,
point
yeah.
now. Yeah, we're getting to the point now. I think I'm going to wait till about 26, 27 events. And then from there, I'm just as long as I'm not in last, I'm just gonna start covering him off. Whoever he picks, I'm gonna pick just to make sure I don't finish in last. Now, if I'm just out of the lead, I'm obviously gonna go for the win. Um, but I whoever's in last, I'm just gonna cover them off and make sure that I don't fall behind them. That's all I care about right now. At that point, right now, I'm still trying to gain some more points.
Yeah, what are we at? This is 19 of 32, right? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you just had that there, 19.
yeah, 19.
But
No.
so this will be 20. So I mean, 12 events left. I'd actually assume that the next 6 events are kind of make or break. Like you either got a chance to win or you don't, because the last 6 events we've all been saving at least 3-4 uses, basically 3 for a lot of these big name guys. So we're going to be repeating and all copying scores for a lot of the big tournaments.
Yeah. Like, I can tell you right now, I'm using Rom and Homa next week, and that'll be the last time I use both of them, probably until
Yep.
the FedEx Cup playoffs. Um, Scheffler, same thing. I might use no. I think I'm saving him for the playoffs as well. Um, and then there's a couple like Schauffele's the other guy I have 4 uses out of, and every time I use him, he
He
doesn't
hasn't
do anything.
performed. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna save him for the Scottish Open though. He won there last
The
year, so we'll see if he
But
can
that's what I
bring
mean.
it
I mean,
back.
we got 4 events that we're
Yeah.
all gonna most likely be copying guys because these are the guys that are going to look to perform the best at these tournaments, and we've been saving for those. So I mean, 12
I think
events left.
events
So
like
there's 8 events that
yeah.
are really make or break in terms of being able to pick other guys and shift the scoring here.
Yeah, I mean, looking ahead, I think events like the John Deere Open, and then the 3M and Wyndham. So those 3 events right there, I think, are going to be huge in deciding who's
Hmm.
going to win it. Because, like you said, obviously the playoffs, and then the Open Championship as well.
And those
Um,
are kind of like break weeks also, where not a lot of
yeah, a lot of the key guys will
some
be
guys
sitting
take
out. Yeah,
breaks. Yeah.
yeah. So no, it's going to be a lot of fun coming down to the end here and seeing who can make up a couple points here or there on somebody. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Moving ahead, last thing on the RBC Canadian Open is we are going to give you our cash out picks. Slade, you can go ahead and go first.
Yeah. So Brant Snedeker, he has played in the RBC Canadian Open. I think they said 9 times, and he's placed in the top 48 of those times. So I was like, you know what, he's got to at least have a chance at getting top 40, and at plus 240, I thought that was pretty good odds for that. The other one that I'm really excited about is Thigala over Fleetwood and Mitchell. I know that doesn't sit well for you and Nick's. I think Nick also picked Fleetwood with you. I know that doesn't really sit well for your guys' picks, but I think that Thigala has like sneakily kind of been like that top 10, 15 guy, right in there between 10 and 15 this season. And so I think that if he's able to do that and Fleetwood and Mitchell kind of miss a couple of shots this week, that he's able to sneak that one out. Not a great payout, but I was hoping to take an easy win there.
Yeah. No, I really like that Brent Sedeker top 40. He just came back from his back surgery. And this past weekend, he looked really, really good at the Memorial Tournament. So I think that's a great pick for him to finish top 40. Um, the Thagala pick, I don't hate. I just wish he would have played better last week on my fantasy team. But what are you gonna do? My picks this week. In the first round, I took Justin Rose to finish better than Matt Fitzpatrick. Last week, Matt Fitzpatrick had a terrible first round. I feel like that's kind of been the stigma around him as he struggles in the first round. I think Justin Rose is going to go out there and have to post a really good number on Thursday to kind of get himself into some sort of position heading into the weekend. And so I think um, Rose is just kind of a better first round. Next pick I have is Adam Hadwin to finish in the top 40. I really feel like we haven't heard this name a lot since he was up there on the leaderboard at the Waste Management Open and kind of fell back as the weekend came. But I'm expecting a big kind of performance out of him heading into again his native land up there in Canada. So I'm gonna take him and to finish in the top 40 at minus 165. The Justin Rose odd was plus 105 as well. So that'll do it for our RBC Canadian Open preview. It's going to be a very fun weekend with lots of headlines swirling around as well. Um, let's go ahead. Let's shift over to growing our game. Um, we've talked about it the last, I think, 3 weeks now, 2 weeks at least. Is this weekend will be the Jack Wagon Sports Cup. It's the first time we're playing. I think it was August last year when we played last. This will be the third iteration of it. The first was at my day before my wedding, when it had to be settled in a playoff at a miniature golf course. So Slade, you're 2-0. Um, one thing I want to know is regarding your game. What is going to be the thing within the first 3 holes that's going to tell you how your day is going to go? Not necessarily just like, oh, like, can't shoot super high scores, but what about your game specifically is going to tell you if you're going to have a good or bad day?
Putting speed.
Yeah.
I think that normally before I would have said driver, teen, but
Mhm.
I think with that I'm just going to take the safe bet, and if things are getting out of hand a little early, I think on any par fours I'm just going to use a hybrid or a 3 iron, just get it down there nice in the fairway, and then play from there. But if it's a nice wide open par 5 or something like that, I'm definitely going to use the driver. I think on all the par 5s, it's going to be necessary for me. I don't hit the ball as far as you and Nick by any chance, so I'm going to need the driver on those holes, just to be able to stay within a stroke of you guys there. But I definitely think putting speed is going to be the one that makes or breaks my score. Just being able to get the speed right is something that can shave at least a stroke off on every single hole. So, I mean, for someone that could easily 3-putt every single hole this weekend, I'm really hoping that that's not the case and that I can hone in on the speed. What about you?
Yeah. For me, it's got to be my chipping. That's one thing I've been trying to work on the most, but it also seems to be the thing. Even while working on it, it's still, I feel like, cost me more strokes than anything when I'm playing. Is I'll either duff a chip, or the big thing too is going to be if I can stay out of the bunkers. I mean, or how I play out of the bunkers, I should say. Obviously, my goal would be to avoid them, but um, the past couple of rounds I played, if I end up in a bunker, that's automatically adding 3 or 4 strokes, and it's just frustrating. So if I can have any kind of success, and for me, my success would be getting something on the green, or if not, kind of close where I can use a bump and run, and like I said, stay out of the bunkers. I think that'll be the big thing that tells me, like, all right, you're gonna be okay today, or you're in for a long day. I think with the three of us, you talked about driving, is yeah, like Nick and I can hit the ball kind of far, but the issue is gonna be keeping it somewhat straight, or at least hitting it to areas where it's gonna be playable. We don't want to hit out of bounds. We don't want to hit into treed areas where it's gonna be difficult to play our next shot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that's gonna be another thing too, is putting ourselves into a scoring position off the tee. Like you said, if that means having to take a lesser club, like I've done really well with my 3 wood for some reason. And then I went to the range today and I was shanking everything again. I was like, oh dear God. But I think if I get through 3 or 4 holes with the driver and it's not clicking. All right, hey, let's pull up the 3 wood, or let's just start teeing off with irons. It's one thing to go out there and when we're on our own and trying to play for a better score and be like, no, I'm going to figure this driver out today. Whereas I think putting the trophy on the line and having bragging rights over one another makes it a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so it adds the mental side of the game in way more than it does in the normal round. Obviously, we beat ourselves up mentally when we just go out and play on our own. But competing between, and this when we predicted our scores the other week, it's like, you know, I I don't have the mental acuity to play the game of golf. I get very hard on myself, and then trying to play for a trophy and trying to have bragging rights over 2 friends. It just adds that much more pressure. So it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, any last thoughts as the defending champion? Any last words?
Um, but I guess my question is there a limit to are we planning to all show up to the course at the same time so we're all with the same range time and stuff like that, or is it just get there when you want and we tee off at 1?
I'd say just get there when you want, only because I'm coming from Philly, and so I
Mhm.
don't want to say, oh, we can't get there till a certain time, and God forbid I get stuck in traffic or something. Plus, I have to go, to our friend's house and pick him up. So yeah, I just get there whenever you want, and then because range time, I don't plan on spending a lot of time on the range. I literally just want to go out there and get my warm up in, hit a couple shots, and see how I'm playing, and go from there. So I would say if you want to get there at 10 o'clock and just play the range
Oh no, no.
to 1.
I'll be leaving
Yeah,
state college at 10 o'clock.
yeah, yeah. But no, it's gonna be. I'm excited for this. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our final thing. It's our blind top 5 for this week. Obviously, with no Nick, I'm going to present it to Slade and see how he ranks these 5 golf podcasts in terms of who he thinks is the most annoying or just the worst in general to watch or listen to. Um, so number 1 is going to be the worst slash most annoying, and then 5 is they're annoying, but they're less annoying than the ones above that. Um, So first and foremost, we'll get the biggest one I would say out of the way, and that's the foreplay pod. How do you feel about that? Where are you ranking them 1 through 5 without knowing what's coming next?
Are we just doing it as a whole, or or yeah, I guess it's just as a whole, right? So, I'm gonna go 4.
Okay.
I kind of like the Barstool Sports stuff. I mean, we kind of grew up in the generation where that was kind of starting to get really big. So, I think it is really cool what they were able to do.
Yeah. I like Trent.
Hmm
I can't. I don't know what the other guy's name. Riggs. I cannot absolutely not
There's
stand.
Riggs, there's Frankie, and there's
Frankie is okay.
they
And
now
then
have Dan Rappaport,
and
who
I
was
can't
a
stand him.
journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really don't like him at all, and so he kind of like it already wasn't high in my mind, but it worsened value. But I feel like Riggs just says like a lot of just stupid shit in my opinion. I
So one thing that the reason why I think that like it's so cool. So first off, I mean, I agree. I think that Trent is the best guy for their group of 4. I also think that Frankie is probably the next guy. I just like him because he was a part of the pizza reviews and stuff, and then
yeah
moved over to golf. The reason why I'm okay with Riggs just kind of being this oddball is because during COVID, he literally went to Pinehurst, I think, and he just stayed there for like 9 months. Got to play golf at Pinehurst because nobody else could go because it was shut down due to COVID,
yeah
and he lived there for 9 months. So I just think that's the coolest thing, that he got paid to live at Pinehurst and play golf every day.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't mind their golf vlogs. I like them, but again,
Mm-hmm.
my bone with that is when Riggs is in them, especially when they do it like with the PGA pros and
Yeah,
they're playing it, and Riggs just talks, and I get that like that's just
he's
sick,
the
but
host guy. Yeah, yeah.
he talks a ton of shit. I'm just like, okay, like I know I'm not
Trent
good, and he could probably beat me, but I'm just like, buddy, like,
Trent's breaking 90 is the best. Yeah,
yeah, and they just brought that back again,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm excited to start watching that. But next podcast is the Breakfast Ball podcast. Where do you rank them? What are your thoughts on them?
I'm gonna go 3.
You're gonna go 3 on them.
Yeah.
Um, again, just when they first started out, I liked them because they had a couple of different things. They started to get a little bit more annoying, and then I think the tipping point for me into like full blown annoying, um, was they did a segment on um, ball markers, and just the things they were saying were just made no sense. And they're like, well, if your ball marker is above the ground and the ball hits it, it's going to affect the trajectory. And just like, I agree, but that's why you're not supposed to put your ball marker in the line. You're supposed to move your ball marker. And then they started. I don't know if it was sponsored or what, but they were talking about this product where it's like a pin, and you're supposed to push it into the ground. It's supposed to sit below grass level. And I'm
hmm
like, that's literally the same thing but reversed. Like if it's sitting below grass level, even if it sits flush with grass level, it's still going to affect how that ball is rolling over that area. Um, that was just the one thing that really soured me on them. But
I think that, and I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that they're looking for TikTok stuff. So like,
yeah,
I think that they're doing these things to be able to put 15, 30-second videos on TikTok, hoping to get a bunch of eyeballs on it because it's controversial or just
right.
weird or different, you know?
It's working because it
Yeah.
annoys me.
Yeah.
um, the next one is one I just recently found, but it's one that you shared. You actually brought up the video earlier, but it's called Ember's Golf. Um, where do you rank them?
I don't know. I think it was just a one-off video I saw.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 2. I have no
Um,
idea.
the reason I put them on it, so they it used to be one channel. They would do like barbecue, cooking, and then they would also talk about golf. And then people started complaining that they were there only for barbecue or only for golf. So now they have 2 different channels. Um, but apparently they have a golf podcast. And just the clip you sent me yesterday. First of all, they couldn't even pronounce Hideki Matsuyama correctly.
Yeah.
Matsuyama is how they said it. But also, like there was just to me there was no facts behind it. Like I think they said $1 billion.
Yeah, that was
And I was
definitely
like,
off. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was like, no disrespect to Hideki, but I don't think he got offered more money than Tiger Woods to jump ship. But next podcast, the Jack Wagon Sports Bunker Boys podcast. Where do you rank that?
5.
5?
Yeah, 5 is good, right?
I I'll take. I would have put it at 1, but
No, I'm saying we're doing reverse, right? So
I
5
know, I
is
know. I'm
okay. Oh
saying,
no, I was confused. The way you reacted,
yeah,
I was like, wait, did I just put up?
no, I'm proud. I was just and the last one is tossing clubs. This is another small podcast like us, but I don't know if you've ever even seen them.
I haven't, but I should have put them at 2 and Embers at 1. Uh, yeah, I have not seen them yet, but I'm definitely going to look into them after this. If I've taken anything from this, it's that I'm gonna watch some TikToks, listen to a podcast.
Yeah. No, I don't really have a huge problem with them, and I mean, I honestly at this point, I got through the 3 ones, really the 2 that I found that have kind of started or annoyed me or started to, and then one was a clip I found. Whereas I'm not trying to throw any shade at tossing clubs. They're probably never going to see this, but um, just another one off the top of my head. I was like, oh, I've seen some of their clips. So that'll do it for our blind top 5 this week. But we're excited to be back next week. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. We have the RBC, more information and news coming out about the merger, and then obviously the Jack Wagon Sports Golden Cup and the results from that, and who is hosting the trophy. Hopefully, it's me, but at the end of the day, we'll see because I do not play
Where
well.
How long will it take for you to put a shelf on the wall behind you if you get to take that home this weekend? Second question before you answer that. Somebody needs to remind me Saturday morning early to get that trophy in my truck because I will forget it.
One that wouldn't surprise me, but two, I don't think I would ever put a shelf behind me. I think I would literally have it here and just fill it with a drink and then just drink
Just
out of
drink
it
out
as
of
we're
it. Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a little
100%.
dusty. I'll clean it out for you.
Oh, it's okay. We'll put plenty of liquor through that this weekend to clean it out and get it disinfected and all that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're excited to talk all about that next week with you guys. We hope
Mhm.
you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you in the next episode.
Yes, sir.